Hi, I'm Dave Hilowitz. Today I thought I would do a little bit of a left turn for this channel. Usually I talk about Kontakt or film music or stuff like that. Today I want to talk a little bit about how I write rock songs using Ableton Live. Ableton. I know a lot of people think of Live as being this tool for electronic music and EDM, and mostly those are the people that you see on YouTube giving demos of how to use it. You almost never hear about rock musicians using Live, and the reason for that is pretty obvious. Live at its core is meant for manipulating audio loops and sometimes MIDI loops, but mostly audio loops. That's like its core competency. And rock music, at least the way people think of rock music, they think of rock music as being based around live performance. It's actually really annoying to record using Live. It's just not built for that. It doesn't have like a multi-track take system or anything like that. Something like Cubase or Pro Tools is going to be much better suited for multi-track recording. But as any EDM producer knows, Live is a really good songwriting tool, and that's how I've been using it. So in this video, I'm not going to talk about how I write melodies. Maybe I'll do that in a few other videos. Right now, I'm just talking about how I assemble songs quickly. Specifically, I have a template that I've built in Live that makes it very, very fast for me to assemble a song. And it's specifically adapted for making the kind of music I make. I write songs that are based on melodies, and I generally have like chord progressions that change once per bar or once every 2 bars. When I'm working out an idea for the first time, the most important thing for me is to be able to switch chords quickly. Of course, I'm not alone in that. For the past 150 years, people have been trying to come up with the perfect chord machine, starting with the auto harp in the 1880s. And of course, the problem with the auto harp is that you only have so many chords. Like, you never get more than like 12 or so chords. Then, of course, in the mid-20th century, people start writing rock songs on guitars. And one of the coolest things about the guitar and writing songs on the guitar is that you have the bar chord, which allows you to kind of slide up and down the neck and just play all of your majors and minors. And writing songs on the guitar is great. It's mostly still what I do. But I wanted something better. Everybody's had that experience of, you start a song and you sing it into, your phone or whatever, and then you listen back a few hours later and you're just like, this isn't anything. And the reason it isn't anything is because most of the stuff that made it really great was still in your head when you walked away from the idea. So I wanted to put a stop to that, and the way to put a stop to that is to be able to flesh out an idea really, really quickly. It doesn't have to sound professional, it doesn't have to sound done, but at the very least you have to kind of get the sense of what the idea could be. The quicker you're able to get an idea to a sort of viable state, the less likely you are to abandon it. So that's where a good template comes in. So I wanted a starting point that could be generic enough that I could use it for any of the kinds of songs that I was writing. So I went back through like the last 10, 15 songs I had written, and I tried to come up with, some common variables. Like, they're all between 120 and 150 BPM. They all use only major and minor chords, almost no sevenths. And the drums are kind of 70s sounding, and that's pretty much it. So about 3 years ago, I released a song called I Know a Man. It's a little Belle and Sebastian sounding with kind of like a Tom Petty moment towards the end. So for whatever reason, I really liked the production on this track, and I kind of felt like it was a good expression of the sound I was going for. Finding a sound for your band is really, really hard. It's pretty easy to copy the sounds of other bands, but finding something that's unique enough that you feel like it could be like a signature sound, but still flexible enough that like you would want to make 10 or 20 songs before moving on, that's kind of hard. I felt like this song had that. So what I did is I turned that song into a template, and that's the template I want to show you here. Okay, so here's the template. Let's just walk through track by track. We start over here on the left-hand side with the drums. What we have here is a combined drum loop. Let's hear what that sounds like. So the first track is actually a chopped up loop from the sessions for my first record. So my first record, I went into a big studio and I had a drummer, and we mic'd and tuned his kit to sound really 70s. And I really, really loved the sound of that kit. So I've used that in pretty much every song going forward. What I did is I took like 4 bars of him drumming and I chopped it up and made it into a MIDI kit. And then I program some loops based on that. And in that way, I'm able to kind of like manipulate the drums and, you know, choose, oh, this snare hit maybe wasn't exactly right. I'm going to use the other snare hit. I'm able to kind of like futz with it in a way that I want. So I really like live drums. Obviously, I make rock music, and most of the time I want live drums. At the same time, live drums can be kind of thin sounding, and there are a bunch of tricks. You can have like a compression bus and do all kinds of stuff like that. I prefer to actually mix my live drums with drum machine drums. Drum machine drums are usually punchier, thicker, and they also almost always sound really fake. So for this kind of music, I probably wouldn't want to use a drum machine on its own because it sounds really fake. Like, here's what the drum machine that I'm using sounds like. But just that little bit of volume boost on the snare and the bass drum works wonders with the original loop. Nobody would ever know that there was a drum machine under there, but it really, I think, thickens up the sound nicely. Okay, moving on. So I've grouped all of the melodic backing elements into a group in Ableton. You'll see why in a little bit. So yeah, let's walk through. First, we have our bass, and this is what it sounds like. So this is just my Aria Pro 2 bass. It's like an early 90s bass, played through my Music Man 65. I sampled every note, made it into a multi-sample. One of these days I'm actually gonna make a Kontakt instrument and sell it, but yeah, I'm not there yet. But it's nice and punchy and it works really well for kind of fleshing out ideas. By the way, I should say, this is a songwriting template. This is not like a final production ready template. Most of the time when I'm releasing a song, I go back and I re-record the bass using the same bass guitar, but it's you do gain something by being able to put in fills and have it like sound a little bit more varied. Anyway, that's the bass. Moving on to the guitars. Next, I basically just have one Kontakt up, and I have these two tracks that both feed into that same instance of Kontakt. And here it is. This is another custom sample, one of these days I'm actually going to release once I'm actually done fine-tuning it. What it is I sampled my Jazz Master, also played through my Music Man 65 head, mostly just to be able to kind of like do finger picking and stuff like that. I don't tend to use the sample as an actual guitar when I want something that actually sounds like a guitar. There's no real substitute for actually playing the guitar in. But I can do these kinds of like cool arpeggiations like. It's really convenient to have a guitar sample hanging out. I've also got a distorted version of the same sample, which sounds like this. I generally use that just to kind of provide an accent at the start of measures, like this, which combined with the arpeggiation sounds like this. Okay, and the final track is acoustic, and I've recorded the same pattern, very basic strumming pattern for all 12 major and all 12 minor chords that sounds like this. And that's one of the only things that even makes this sound remotely like a rock song at all, or maybe like a 60s pop song. So altogether, these elements sound like this. Which actually sounds exactly like the song that this came out of. So where this template shines and where it's actually useful is that all of these patterns have been replicated for all major and all minor chords. So I can play any chord progression just by kind of clicking around. And sometimes I'll just stand here like clicking around and singing melodies until I come up with something. So I don't know. But anyway, finally, I've got these tracks that are just kind of like left open. These are for lead vocals and these are for acoustic leads. And this final thing, this purple thing, is my trusty piano sample. When I'm mocking up a vocal, I generally will write the part in MIDI first. And I've chosen this piano sample that's really, I don't want to say bad, but it's really basic. It doesn't sound good. It was actually, I think, made in 2001, 2002, something like that. Really, I think it's like 6 samples or something. Very, very basic. And the reason that I've chosen something so basic is that I don't want to get too attached to the sound. I want this to be a sound where it's very clear that I'm going to replace it with something better. If I were to choose a really beautiful lead sound, I might be tempted to just make this an instrumental song. I could feel like my vocals don't even really compete with the original instrument. So it's kind of like a psychological trick that I'm playing on myself, where I want the lead instrument to be less good sounding than the vocals that I'm hoping to put in there. The other thing is the piano is kind of dull sounding, and I know that if I'm able to get the piano to cut through the mix, I know my vocals are going to cut through the mix too. Now we can go over to our session view and just take a look at it. Okay, let's record the melody. So yeah, just like that, we have kind of like a little verse idea. I don't know if I'm actually going to use this, but you kind of get the picture. I can see that some of you are going to be watching this and thinking, but if you use a template like this, aren't all your songs going to sound the same? And the answer is yes, but not really. So if you were just to actually take this template and use it literally as the backing for all of your songs, then yeah, of course, by definition, they would have to all sound the same. But as long as you know that that's a danger, that you could make a bunch of songs that sound the same, you're going to take steps to make sure that doesn't happen. So you might put the whole thing together and then swap out the drums, swap out the bass, swap out different elements until you have something that's like pretty unique. For example, for a while, I started swapping out these like guitar patterns with harpsichords and then using this instrument called a phonoharp to double that. And it sounded completely different, completely changed the entire sonic character of the songs. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Mostly what I'm trying to convey through this video is that having a template to get the songwriting process started is immensely useful. Maybe not even just one template, but several templates for different kinds of songs. The quicker you can get to something viable, the less you're likely to abandon a project. Film composers know this already. Film composers almost always start with templates. Rock musicians, not so much. Usually you start with a blank canvas, but from a songwriting perspective, it's immensely useful to be able to get something fleshed out quickly, which doesn't mean that you have to keep any of the elements. This is really just about convincing yourself that you have something that's worth working on. Okay, I think that's it. I'm not sharing this particular template mostly because it makes use of a bunch of Waves plugins that most people don't own, but I am going to be releasing the multi-samples that are in it as products separately. So yeah, look out for those. If you've been enjoying these videos, remember to hit like and subscribe. Yeah. Take care.